Hello and greetings from myself and the whole of the control team. Really sorry we're not able to be there with you in person. It's always great to discuss things face to face with the EFRA board, all of the federations and of course the associate members. But as we know, this year we're doing things a little bit differently, and I'm sure everyone is tired of hearing 2020, what a strange year, and it didn't turn out like any of us could have predicted. And you know, it's true. Who could have predicted that the most exciting EFRA A Euros in 2020 was going to be the 1/12 Euros, and the most well attended and the highest viewership online of any of the Euros in 2020, the 12 Euros, and the hottest weather of any Euros in 2020 was the 12th Euros, and the winner of the modified 12th Euros was Alexander Hagberg. But then again, it's 7 years now, so I guess you could say he was one of the favourites. And of course, congratulations to Jorn as well on taking the stock. And that's it from me. Take care and see you next year. No, there's a few more things. First, a little bit of a recap. Earlier in the year, we had the pleasure of collaborating with Jackie to update and launch the new EFRA.ws website with its clean, responsive layout that looks great on whatever device you choose to get your internet on. But I think one of the areas we're most proud of is the events section, which contains a wealth of information about the event for those taking part, about the track, when and how to find it. Additionally, this track information is kept in place for future events. So every time we add a new event in a new facility, that track becomes an official Euros track with its own page on the website. Over time, this will become a database that viewers can search and find all the best tracks in Europe. Now, I get it. Some of the people watching this will be thinking, big deal, I know where the Hoodie Arena is. All off-road fans know where the Wendler track is in Ferring. That's true. And if you don't know, somebody will know and you can ask them. And RC is a very friendly community and it's always easy to find these things out. But for people that don't know, this is a very key point. And it's something that should guide us from now on into the future, for the good of the sport, the hobby and the industry. EFRA, us as a media partner and all of the federations must present clear and consistent information that's easy to understand to everybody, even those outside who've never had any experience of RC before. Which means Nick speaking slowly and clearly and slowly.
Okay, Matt. This is my delivery for the whole of 2021.
But seriously, we have to find a balance between giving knowledgeable RC fans the details they want to hear and the educational info that speaks to newcomers so that they can grasp what's going on and feel like they have a chance to get involved. This, I believe, is the fundamental backbone that we need to embrace as part of EFRA's development plan for the future. Yes, we need to look cool and fun as a hobby, but stage one is we need to be accessible and easy to find. And when I say easy to find, I mean both geographically and online. And it's not just the people on the outside we need to think about. I myself, a few years ago, travelled to a B Euros and having arrived on day one, found myself outside the club's secretary's house some 30 miles away because I'd copied down the mailing address and not the actual track location. Which coincidentally was the same year that after filming all day and doing my report and then going to the hotel at 8 PM in the evening, I then found that it had closed. Nick had booked it, by the way, and it had closed a year earlier.
Oh, my hotel doesn't exist. It's shut. It's run by werewolves. Honestly, all the team does is moan. Look, you get fed occasionally. Sometimes you aren't sleeping on hay. Just be grateful you're filming the greatest RC in the world and enjoy that, regardless of the fact you may be staying in a hovel with no air conditioning.
Yes, and sleeping in my car. Well, these things do happen, but the point is, do we truly make ourselves open and accessible for the people in the outside world? I mean, we can all really take some time to think about this, and you go and look at your federation's website or your club's Facebook page and you ask yourself, what's the problem? It's all there in text and photos and videos. What's so hard to understand? The problem is you asked the wrong person, Because you, me, everyone here, none of us are capable of not knowing the first thing about RC. So it's actually a lot harder than you think to genuinely view what we do through the eyes of an outsider. Well, we're starting to do this. These guys have no knowledge of the RC hobby, let alone that there's a sport. And we're working with people like this in a project called RC and Me, which I'll come to a bit later on. But meanwhile, back at the website, so the events section, since we launched it, there sadly haven't been any events. But we do still have our rich heritage of world-class events and coverage which feature in the Hall of Fame section and the RC archives, with hundreds of articles dating back to even before I was born. Not you though, Nick, I'm afraid.
No, I have experience, seniority and creaking limbs and failing eyesight, but I still remember the 1977 European Championships.
Yes. While we're on that, as agreed with EFRA and as part of the development plan, all of this content is now held on EFRA's own YouTube channel. And the Euros finals, they're easily located in playlists, whereas before it was kind of buried on the RC Racing TV YouTube channel. Additionally, on the EFRA YouTube channel, we have a range of features produced from 2019 events, all with a focus on explaining different elements of our sport to outsiders. So we have things like what is 1/12 scale racing, explaining RC pit stops, what it means to be a team principal. Now, of course, I know we don't refer to them as team principals, but that's just one example of how we want to relate our sport to the world of full-scale motorsport so that more people understand. Because the thread running through all of our work is how to bring new people into the sport and making the sport better for those already involved. So next up is our project to develop a new brand image for EFRA. Now, some of you will remember from my presentation last year that this is really not something we take lightly, and it's quite hard to overstate the amount of hours and effort that's gone into this project, which is still ongoing but now entering its 5th and final phase. Right from the beginning of this process, we knew that we needed to handle this with care and respect. The fact is, EFRA is the formation of millions of hours of volunteers giving of their time and services over many, many years. And when I say that, I'm aware that I'm talking about you and many, many more people who can't be here today and in some cases are no longer with us. EFRA is a rich tapestry on which so much sporting history has been built. So to change the identity, that is not to be taken lightly at all. It's very easy for anyone to say that a logo that has existed for many years needs updating. It's easy to say it looks dated. And it's easy to say that it could be more appealing to those outsiders I keep talking about. But as we start to answer those questions and make those changes, if we don't have those same foundations, those people, you, on board with us, then it's not authentic, it's not progress, and frankly, it's just change for change's sake. Now, that doesn't mean that I can guarantee everyone will completely love the appearance of the new brand. It's not possible that something could be pleasing to the eye for 100% of the people. But I sincerely hope that we can convince you that we entered this process with clear intentions, a great deal of care, and the utmost respect for those who've gone before us and those who continue to make EFRA what it is today. Now, like I say, the project is ongoing and it has to be behind the scenes. A process like this can't be carried out in public. And whilst it's in its final stages, I can't show you every single design and every step we've taken. And I think there's an expression along the lines of a horse being a camel designed by a committee. But that being said, I do want to give you a flavour of our thinking, where we've been and where we're headed. To navigate this process, we set up 2 groups, a group of trusted, respected, knowledgeable RC insiders, and a second group of complete strangers who knew nothing about RC and really didn't care what we were doing, but were happy to give us honest feedback about our progress and what it looked like to them, people from the outside world. So back in February, my team and members of the EFRA board put together a list of names of people from all walks of life within RC. Those who do racing, manufacturing, media, design, a federation representative, and some EFRA board members. Together we looked at the previous year's research with the online survey findings and the presentation I made last year, plus the feedback I was given by individuals at last year's AGM. In the first meeting, we set about our priorities for the rebrand. Having clear goals would help us not to get carried away or lost down an ideas rabbit hole. It means that at every stage we could stop and check our progress was in keeping with our goals. Also, our priorities were set in order of importance, meaning we felt as a group that having some visual connection or feeling with EFRA's activities was the most important for us to represent as a brand. Visually appealing is an obvious one, but something that someone would actually feel proud to wear on a t-shirt or a hoodie to represent EFRA's brand. And in third, to retain EFRA's heritage, so give some consistency with the established EFRA brand. Of course, in our meetings we'd discuss openly at length. We had agreements, disagreements, the whole spectrum. But in addition to this, after every session, we'd send a confidential questionnaire to all parties so that they could clarify what they were thinking, particularly after a few days of reflection. So we did this process after every session and sometimes before a session too. Meanwhile, we also commissioned 3 artists, 2 of whom have worked in RC branding before, 1 from the outside, each to work completely independently, just to give us some kind of starting points and different directions to go in. So one of the first topics we had to work through is how do we communicate the activities of EFRA in just an image? Maybe an icon or maybe a tagline, similar to the examples I showed previously, where organisations whose names, who often seem to be French, but give more of a clue of their subject by using a tagline. Over the next 2 meetings, we worked around different phrases and taglines that we felt summed up our racers' passion for scale motorsport. We like the phrase scale motorsport, for instance, but then we discovered it's quite widely used within slot cars, and obviously slot cars are just little toy cars, not like our thing, which is the real scale motorsport. But as the first designs from the artist came in, we entered round 1, and now we're in round 5, so above all I must thank all of the members of the group who've given of their time and patience, and of course the artists who've worked on version after version after version of these designs. So let's give you a flavour of our journey. Now, originally my thoughts were that we'd be pretty conservative and stay fairly close to the current EFRA brand, just with some modern twists. But what surprised me as we went down this path, our trusted focus group were really quite bold. And as the journey continued, things actually started to get quite exciting as the path became clear. Now, originally that path was going in 2 completely opposite directions, but now over time we've worked through, and as we enter the final stage, we are set on one style that I think is right for our goals, but it's not what I think, it's what our focus group thinks, and all importantly, it's what the outside world thinks. Now, when it comes to the possibilities with the images, we considered having an illustration of a car, but of course we have many different classes of racing. We couldn't just pick a touring car or a buggy or an LMP, but then creating an image that's kind of generic, that doesn't really look like any one particular style of vehicle, also starts to look like no style of vehicle at all. So could add to the confusion. So then we started to consider a transmitter. That is a key element to our sport. However, the group was split on whether we would go with a stick transmitter or steering wheel. Of course, the pistol style transmitter is more modern and widely used, but what if the old style stick transmitter would actually be more widely recognised? What if we used both style of transmitter in one logo? The debate went on. In steps our outsiders group. Now, in our first session with them, we showed them the current EFRA logo. We discussed this and listened to what it made them think of.
Probably, is it travel?
Is it like an environmental group?
Could be like worldwide.
It looks like maybe a charity.
Something about travel.
Yeah, something for like the planet.
Yeah, travel.
This is pretty consistent with our online survey from before. So what if we showed them images of transmitters? Would that help them understand or give them a bit more of a clue what EFRA is about?
What's that?
What is that?
Mechanical.
It kind of looks like a sewing
I was
machine.
about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no clue what that is.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what that is.
Now this is just our first session because COVID made it quite difficult for us to work in these college and university environments. But our intention is to work with regular outsider groups over the next year with a wide range of ages and genders as we continue to work on different aspects of EFRA's development plan. Now some of you might be thinking, Matt, what's this obsession with outsiders? Just let people find the hobby like they used to in years gone by. And I think that's the key. People aren't finding the RC hobby in the numbers they used to, and also people's pathway to RC is changing. If we look at a typical pathway for the majority of people in RC now, it starts over 1 or 2 generations back. Parent did RC for years, child came along, eventually begins to take part in RC, and then after a few more years, child gets faster than the parent. So now the parent is chief mechanic and title sponsor of this new RC family motorsport team. But sadly, this dynamic is changing. And as we know, many kids are choosing to play video games. Another thing that's changed is the local shop you used to buy all your RC parts from, and they would give you advice. You know, these interactions, these establishments, along with local clubs, they formed a community. This community is still the lifeblood of our sport, and particularly without clubs, it will die. But we urgently need to forge new pathways and new journey for the outsider into the community. Figuring out this pathway and putting these steps into place is the very essence of our work within EFRA's development plan. And this part of the journey we're calling RC and Me. So meanwhile, our inside group continue to refine and eliminate different possibilities and eventually settle on a decided direction we'd like to take the brand. And whilst I can't reveal the final style to the industry until it's officially unveiled, I can show you the reaction we got when we showed our progression to the outsiders.
Sport.
Yeah, something to do with like motors and electric
Cars,
stuff.
probably.
Yeah.
It's to do with motorsport, isn't it?
So obviously it's something to do with like motor, so like engines, cars,
Formula 1 type of thing.
Oh. So do cars.
like racing.
Remote control.
Formula 1.
Racing cars.
Is that like remote control or something like that?
I think remote control sounds about right.
You can tell it's more sporty, like Formula 1.
Motorsport. Says
Europe, so it's going to be like within Europe.
The letters just look like racing.
Oh, it is remote control. It seems like a remote control for the like race motorsport car stuff.
I can, however, tell you we are proposing the adoption of an official tagline, RC Motorsport Europe. Our role is to promote RC as a motorsport to the world. And with this clear statement of intent, we intend to set the tone for a new era in RC, one where the people inside RC have clear signposts to point their friends to, and one that says EFRA as the governing body of RC motorsport in Europe means business, and one that of course has the RC and Me journey at its heart.